You did. It is.
Well, okay. Holy moly. Good evening, everybody. Hello. I think I know most of you, but if we've not met, my name is Jason Cannon. This is surreal. It's awesome. I appreciate so much all of you taking some time this Friday and being here and supporting a couple really cool things. One is the launch of Mark St. Germain's brand new thriller, The Mirror Man. Where'd you go, Mark? There he is, back there. Another is a celebration of Sam Mossler, dearly departed, who is, and I'll tell you the story, who is very much one of the big reasons we're all here right now. And the other is just kind of to launch IBIS Books on its next phase of its journey. Many of you know I have worked at Florida Studio Theater. Oh, you can't hear me very well? I will speak up then. I moved down to Sarasota to work at Florida Studio Theater, and I've been there 10 years. But this thing has taken off so much, and Rebecca's in my life has pivoted in such a way that I decided to make a big leap. And I am now a full-time writer, publisher, online teacher. And thank you. Biggest fan of FST and hope to work with them here and there as schedules allow, but this has now become the thing I do. And so I, again, so appreciate your support for me, for Sam, for Mark, and for hopefully the other things we'll be doing. There's a couple of you that I'm eyeing that I already know you're working on something that hopefully we'll be launching in the next few months. IBIS happened because during lockdown, a writing club formed. And Sam and myself and Amanda Hargan here and a few others, we would meet every Saturday on Zoom and share work. And it was a way to kind of stay sane through lockdown. I've finally seen Patricia and Max, who I've had as a student for the last 2 years. This is my first time meeting her in person tonight. She's been a Zoom student for 2 years. It's fantastic. It kept us sane. And then I did a deep dive on self-publishing and how publishing even worked. But it was around that time before my book was finished that Sam passed. And Sam was almost finished too. And that really lit the fire. Why try to wait to get it out, right? You don't have time. So Ghostlight came out. I published another one, The Understudy. And then it was a few months later where I sat down with Nicole and then also with Nikki and got permission to finish Queen Palm, because just as Sam had helped me on my book, I had been nose deep in his as well, giving him notes and ideas. And ghostwriting the rest of his book was one of the biggest honors of my life. I'd wake up every morning about 5 a.m. And go splash around in Sam's brain for a couple hours before going to work. And when I finished it, it was almost like, I don't want it to be done yet because I'm going to not get to go play with Sam in the morning. And then publishing his book was awesome. We had that great event at the Bookstore last November. And then things just started to kind of happen. Mr. Mark St. Germain, who was an award-winning, nationally renowned playwright, who I've been very honored to direct his work and act in his work, he reached out to me saying, I'm writing a thriller too, and I kind of need someone to publish it. Do you know anything about that? So he's like, okay, I will totally write Mark St. Germain's coattails. And so that has just launched in the last couple of weeks. And we're going to bring Mark up here in a second to talk about his process on that. But all those things kind of coming together really just, as a lot of us have done in the last couple of years, reflect on what you want to put out there, what you want to do. And while I will always love theater and FST, this is now the thing. And the best way to support IBIS and me and Sam and Mark is to sign up for this email list. This wonderful bookstore has copies of all 3 books for sale down there. If they sell out, they can special order for you, or you can get them from the IBIS Books website. You all have some little swag there on your table. Please take that. There's a feather, which is my brother-in-law Charlie. It is both from an ibis and a quill. Right? But there's a bookmark in there. There's a business card in there. There's a coupon for a free book from IBIS. My second book, The Understudy. You can get it free as an ebook from my website if you go. So enjoy the swag there. If you want more, I have a few extra ones, and there's more bookmarks here as well on the table, as well as food and wine. Please, just at any point, get up and help yourself. I do want to now bring up Mark St. Germain, though, author of The Mirror Man and sundry plays, many of which I think several of you have seen over at FST: Dancing Lessons, Best of Enemies, Freud's Last Session, Becoming Dr. Ruth. I forgot one. Fabulous the Batones. I first have to say that your shoes are on point.
Yes.
My daughter made fun of them, so I went out and got them in green and yellow. It's a nice thing.
Awesome. So you're primarily a playwright, but you've also written for television and film. Talk about, because you have a couple other books too. Talk about what was drawing you from going from that medium into novels.
Well, it never seemed to be that much of a stretch to go from the plays to television to film. It just visually thinking was different. I've always been really intimidated by novels because I started to realize I have no interest in anything but them talking, which is not a good thing.
Right.
And so I did a children's book called Three Cups a number of years ago. Then I did a comedic memoir called Walking Evil. And that was a book about a dog, Evie. But at Petco, when they called her to the training session on the loudspeaker, they said, "Will Evil come to the training?" So she became Evil. And the dog lived to ruin my life. Pretty much did. Mirror Man was different. It just came from an idea a long time ago when I read there is this condition where some people who are very disturbed can basically adapt the mannerisms and the energy of whoever they're talking to. And so the premise is that this man who was put away after murdering his parents.
That happens in the first chapter. It's not a spoiler.
No, they're dead very fast. And he's very young, I think 8, and then his brother is 5, sorry.
I did edit the book.
He did edit very well. And what happened is after the police locked him up, put him in a psychiatric unit, his brother was up for adoption. So sooner or later, he ran into a young psychiatrist who clicked with him, and he just kind of molded himself into the personality of this lovely psychiatrist as opposed to a guy he hated, who was a very hateful guy. And she said he has to be released. He's cured. He's a lovely man to work with. So he's released. And what he decides to do is that his brother has been kind of swallowed by the adoption system. Nobody knows it was a Catholic institution. The records are burned down. He is on a quest to find his brother, who has no ID. And anybody who stands in his way, he has a very simple code. It's almost mafioso. There are good people and there are bad people. Anyone who gets in his way is a bad person. And they don't deserve to live. And it's really that simple with him. So he I won't get more away.
That's good.
He seeks to find his brother and chaos ensues.
Chaos ensues. Yeah, it struck me like there's pieces of like Halloween in there, right? The escapee or he doesn't escape, but he gets out and then escapes. And then there's a Dexter, like that whole code thing, very Dexter. And then Rebecca and I, when we drove on our vacation last time, we listened to John Grisham book on tape. What was it called? It was about a judge who was also a serial killer.
Yeah.
Might be called The Judge.
Yeah.
He was also a serial killer.
Let's look downstairs.
But yeah, so it's kind of a combination of those things. So it's a rip snorting yarn.
Mhm.
The Mirror Man, yes. And fun fact about it, the gentleman who designed the IBIS Books logo also designed Mark's cover. He lives in the Philippines. That is the magic of the internet.
The judges list.
The judge's list, thank you. The magic of the internet. So you said that that the Mirror Man idea just kind of came to you a few years ago, but did you just put it away? Did it come back to you because of something else?
I put it away for, well, I tried to get it published, which for anybody who has tried to do that without a publishing agent knows how impossible it is. Then eventually when Walking Evil came out, I thought, why not take it out again? And I mean, my dream was always, and this has not been realized yet, is to write a series. I would love to write, I mean, I'm just hooked on every mystery series and I go through all of them like candy. There have to be at least 5 books and I'll go through them. So I don't know if Michael Ash can return, but I would love to do a series.
I'm doing a series.
You are. Are you having fun with it?
I'm having a great time because you fall in love with your characters and they start talking to you and they surprise you.
Yes.
And you end up writing things you had no idea you were going to write. For those of you who are interested, so Ghostlight is book 1, the Understudy is book 2, book 3 is Blackout, it'll be out in the summer. And it's about an actor who becomes a vigilante and chases terrorists. It is in no way autobiographical. He gets swallowed into kind of this vigilante group that works under the radar. So it's a little bit Criminal Minds, it's a little bit off-Broadway play, it's a little bit Avengers. So there are scenes in acting class next to scenes of knockdown, drag-out fights on the subway. So check that out. I wanted anyone who has a question for Mark, please have that locked and loaded. Once you started writing a thriller, as someone who also consumes them voraciously, did you find yourself copying Lee Child or copying James Rollins? Did you find yourself just kind of flowing with the story? Did you have to go back and rethink your plot at any point?
Well, when I started it, it was so many years ago that there was no Lee Child. So, subsequently,
I'm kidding.
I wasn't even born yet. That's how old. No, he's. I hadn't read him at that point. Michael Connolly, probably. Yeah. I mean, I always wanted. I mean, I try very hard with the plays to keep everything pared down as much as possible. I don't want an extra word, and I tried the same with the book to make it
Lean and mean.
lean and mean.
And that's trickier too, because as you mentioned, in a play, it's all dialogue and stage directions. Right? We don't get to go into the brains or have that omniscient thing going on like you do in a book, right? Yeah, that's one of the reasons I think I enjoyed writing with a group, because then the dialogue, I think of them not as chapters but as scenes. You kind of approach it theatrically in a similar way as you're
Sort of. I mean, I think what Mamet said is true about books and plays. That never think you're writing a play or a book, you're writing 5 pages. Every day you're writing 5 pages. And it's a smart thing because you can get overwhelmed. So you start thinking at the end. And like you said, which is very true, if you really are immersed, the characters do what they want. I mean, it sounds ridiculous and fanciful, but it's true. I remember the first play I wrote. I had a very good idea where it was going. 2 kids, very disturbed kids in a very private, wealthy school, and on their graduation night. And I got 3/4 the way through it, and I had one idea, and then all of a sudden, I realized they were going to commit suicide. I had no idea. These were based on 2 kids who luckily didn't commit suicide. But yeah, it takes you over. It really does.
I'll never forget, as I was working on Ghostlight, I had a scene where my main character, Gideon, just offhandedly mentioned a sister. And there was a backstory about his sister, Finley, that was apparently fraught. And I had that, whatever, but then everyone in the writing group, I Amanda, Sam, were like, what's up with the sister? Who's this sister? And it was so like, we have to know more about that. I was like, I now have to write a chapter about the sister. And so I did. I wrote a chapter with the sister, and it ended up being one of my favorite chapters in the book. And now she's going to become a character in a future book. Again, that's just one of those things where no idea.
Right.
And that's where also getting feedback from other people. Writing can be so solitary. Theater, at least, there's readings or people are, but.
Well, the writers groups are great. I had one up in Woodstock. And it's interesting because it's a screenwriter, a poet, nonfiction. No one really does the same thing. So you get a real smart but semi-outsider point of view.
I'm going to turn out here. Are there any questions for Mark or me about Mirror Man or IBIS or anything else? That was just a scratch. Yeah, please.
Talk about dancing lessons, because that was extremely popular in town. And Jason set you up here, but it was just a completely popular, lovely conglomeration. So talk a little bit about dancing lessons.
Sure.
It was a really great start to your all.
That's how we
Yeah.
actually met that.
Well, Jason was incredible, really good. Well, the play started, I used to belong to a playwriting conference that met every summer out in Indiana. And James Houghton, who's deceased now, he ran the Signature Theater and started the Signature Theater, would bring his son out there who would sit at the lunch table. He was severely autistic, never said a word, never looked at anybody, maybe he was 7. And years later, I was walking down the street in New York and I see Jim and this young man with him. And he says, "You remember my son?" I was shocked at the change. He said, "A jacket and tie." I said, "Sure." And he says, "You remember Mark?" And he says, "Yes, he lives at 174 Home Avenue in Rutherford. He had a child born when we were in New Harmony. His children are Daniel and Catherine." This is from a boy who didn't say a word.
Wow.
So it really interested me in autism. And so that the character came to me. And then the woman who was a dancer, who's probably will never dance again because of a leg injury, just came from someone, a dancer I know who would injure herself. So that's what the play originated.
And it got a lot of recognition for focusing on autism. What you can do.
Yeah.
But it's not just.
Yeah. It's been fortunate. It's been done a lot. It's been done a lot in Europe with tours. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions out here? Every time I always think you're going to ask something.
I'm just trying to, because it's like that's what you do. You're supposed to ask questions.
There's no pressure. It's just curious. Yeah, Scott.
I have a question. So Jason, now tell me a little bit about, you said you took a deep dive into figuring out the publishing world, which was pretty quick. So what were your big 2 or 3 takeaways from that? Obviously, it wasn't intimidating enough that you were like, yes, I'm going to write and I'm going to publish, because not everybody wants to take on both. So tell me a little bit about that.
There's a couple different worlds going on right now. The internet and frankly, Amazon have changed a lot of the rules, some for the good, some for the bad. Georgia Court was actually a huge resource for me in helping understand what those lines actually are, the lines of demarcation. Because anyone with an internet connection now, and again, this is both good and bad, can just throw whatever they want up there, right? This is something I've been talking to Mark about, is that one of the key things I learned is that Amazon is not a bookstore. It is a search engine. And so it treats you very differently. It could care less about your content because it has so much. So it tries to entice you with these extra high royalty rates to get to and once you dig in, you realize, okay, no, it's better if I own the real estate, which is why I have my own website, and the ebook versions of all the books I sell through my own website. Don't give away the keys to the kingdom. It's going to take time. Independent publishers have a tough time getting into brick and mortar stores. It's going to take a lot of kind of sweat and footwork to do that in the relationships. What is fun about doing the publishing side is that it's kind of more like directing, as you have a bit more control. We were talking earlier about the cover art. you know, and how that's a place where the internet is, like I said, the guy who did Ghostlight is in Arizona. The guy who did my logo and did Germain is in the Philippines, and you can access so many amazing people and artists from all over the place. And by doing my own publishing, getting my own Bowker ISBN numbers, by doing it right, I can treat the authors more fairly and not cede all the control to. We can complain about gatekeepers, but just because it's a online platform doesn't mean that they aren't gatekeepers too. So that's kind of the thing I'm really trying to navigate, really support the authors and get them as much of a cut as I can, but also not stick a finger in the eye of brick and mortar stores, which are being pummeled by these online things, a lot of which on there is just not good. It's just not good. Quality. So I gotta find that sweet spot where someone like me can just kind of, I don't want to have to lease an office and, you know, hire a whole staff. I just want to be able to work with authors, get books out to people who want to read them, keep telling stories the way I have in theater is the goal. I don't know if that's a path that's already been walked yet or not. We'll see. Let's see. Yeah.
So you're your own editor and all, you know, who does the printing and all that stuff?
Print on demand. I do. So there's a company called Ingram, which is where the books that actually for sale out here, you order them. Bookstores order them through Ingram. So Ingram has a publishing platform where you can upload to them, and that way bookstores can access it on the up and up. I have used some outside proofreaders and editors just because those outside eyes help so much. Writers groups help a lot. But yeah, I like to have my hands on the cover designs and stuff like that for sure, to keep it a cohesive artistic statement.
Talk about the cover design though. That was when we started this project for Sam's book. That was really kind of an exciting way that you found for your book to go about figuring out this. I love this cover of Sam's book so much. It's really tickled by it. So that process to me is super interesting.
So I've done my covers 3 different ways. There is a online clearinghouse where editors and designers live called Reedsy, and that's where I met the designer for Ghostlight. And it was just a thing where I put a brief out and people bid on it, and then I picked my favorite one. Queen Palm was their website called 99 Designs, which companies use like crazy to design anything from posters to logos to mugs, to album covers to magazine covers. And again, you put a brief out there, and then all the designers pitch you ideas, and you get to pick your favorite ones. What's really smart is they also have a whole gallery of what are images you like, what's the feeling of the book. And so I kind of didn't just give a verbal like blurb or plot summary. It was, and here's the feeling, here's the colors, here's the ideas. It's the Gulf Coast. It's and the guy who put that one out was just like, this cover is awesome. And then you just work with them to edit it down into a more pristine version. Then Germain was the guy Peter. I love my logo so much. I just worked directly with him. So I've done the 3 covers in 3 different ways. Kind of depends on the book, and it kind of depends on relationships. Yeah, please.
How do you describe the parameters of your publishing mission?
Missions on the website. I should have it memorized. I thought about it a lot. You'd think it would be completely accessible in the front of my brain. I can tell you why it's IBIS. Rebecca and I walk around the park a lot, and there's always flocks of ibises around, you know, stabbing the ground with their face.
That's what you do when you're
Totally.
frustrated.
Why isn't Mark responding? And I had a list of maybe like 50 different names. But then I was doing some research, and this is why ibis. The ibis is an animal sacred to Thoth, Egyptian god of learning, the inventor of language, and the scribe to the gods. Also, ibises are all over the place on the Gulf Coast. It's where they live. And ibises are legendary for their courage. Yeah, this is why the Miami Hurricanes, why their mascot is an ibis. Because the ibis is the last sign of wildlife to take shelter before a storm blows through, and they're the first ones that come out once the storm has passed. Like it's a thing. Like ibises are great. So that's why for me I thought ibis was like ended up being a perfect name. So my mission: publish and promote books that entertain, provoke, inspire, comfort, and educate. Seek out authors of diverse backgrounds and varied points of view who believe in the power of the human species to evolve for the better, and support those authors as they write that evolution into existence. And if I can not go into debt doing it, awesome. But that's really what it comes down to. I've been an artist my whole life, primarily in theater, but it's still just storytelling. It's still impacting readers instead of viewers, but it's still trying to take something here or here and put it here in someone else. And just now the delivery system's a little different.
Well said.
Amanda, Mark, thank you very much. For you, often at these events, there is an author reading, right? Sam, of course, would kill that if he was here. He'd be amazing. Often authors don't have the best readers. But we are going to do kind of a theatrical reading. So what I have is we have Dee, who is Sam's uncle. He's going to play the narrator. We're going to do a little 2-chapter, about 10-minute reading from Sam's book, Queen Palm. And then my dear friend, and they also work with Sam at FST, and seasoned actors, Andrew Deeb and Danae Lortz are going to play some various characters in the bar, and then they're going to play the main characters, Vern Bushnell and Mia. So they will read that dialogue. So it's kind of like what you're talking about, Mark, is that sometimes the dialogue will take over. I'm just going to run with it. So we're going to have a three-person reading, 2 chapters from Queen Palm by Sam Mossler.
Chapter 5, The Old Heidelberg Castle, 1984. Vern Bushnell's Z28 had sport suspension, dual exhaust, positive traction, a black finish grille, front and rear spoilers, and a 350 cubic inch, 245 horsepower V8 engine. He called her Tina. His favorite pastime was driving shirtless down Tamiami Trail at high speeds with a tall boy at Miller Lite secured between his thighs. This evening, he drove even faster than usual. He played his music even louder than usual. He didn't bother with a tall boy because tonight he was going to drink beer from a goddamn glass. He had $200 bills in his pocket, and he was out for the most raucous advertisement that Sonichiki had to offer. Sonichiki possessed a unique natural resource, owing to its distinctive climate. It was a place where ancient showfolk went to die. The folks who got too old to spend another season with the circus stayed behind when the winter ended. And all the session musicians who saved up enough bread to spend their golden years in paradise, but didn't have quite enough for Fort Myers, invariably ended their migration in Sonichiki. This was to the great advantage of a good many local night spots that offered live entertainment. The old Heidelberg Castle featured aged trapeze artists wearing lederhosen, hurling through the air while ancient musicians, also lederhosen, played the two-fat polka. The ambiance was heightened by the fact that there weren't a lot of health code considerations back then, so the menu featured huge wooden trays of greasy sausages, bratwurst, knockwurst, bockwurst, any wurst you want, all washed down with massive steins of old style, filled from plastic pitchers as indiscriminately as if it were iced tea. Every patron left exhilarated and polluted. It was a heck of a place. And that sultry eve, Vern Buchanan fell in love there. It was a Tuesday, so a lot of the main attractions had the night off. Just a small polka outfit and some chair dancing. Vern had guzzled a gallon of Old Style and was full of more bratwurst than Mike Ditka. After the fourth accordion rendition of the Blue Danube, Vern gathered his effects and headed for the door, pondering his next stop. But suddenly, the atmosphere charged. His heart accelerated, and his pupils dilated, and the room became more vivid and three-dimensional, all before he had even set eyes on her for the first time. The pudgy guy that owned the place came out on stage and mumbled something unintelligible in Chicagoan and pointed to the rafters, where there hung a sad fabric facsimile of a chicken. The spotlight hit the chicken. The chicken yodeled. There was something supernaturally sinister, yet pleasurable about the way Vern's internal organs writhed around in anticipation of the imminent unknown.
Uh-oh!
Shouted the proprietor, and the retired Teamsters that frequented the place got all giddy. They yelled back at him.
Uh-oh!
You know what that means?
Chicken dance!
Please welcome the lovely Mia and the chicken dance!
Band played her in, and there she was, breathtaking, in her yellow leotard, sparsely adorned with feathers and sparkles and sequins. The lovely Mia. The old Teamsters abandoned their bratwurst en masse, rushed the stage, and flapped their arms in unison, reveling in her youth and mimicking her every move as she guided them through the various sequences of the chicken dance. But Vern noted not one of them, because time had stopped for him. The polka transformed into a mesmerizing song of sirens. Mia's lift arms wafted into the air as her exquisite fingers impersonated chicken beaks. Vern pushed through the frozen crowd and joined in her slow, sultry choreography. Their eyes locked, and as their elbows jutted into chicken wings, their souls linked. Chapter 6. A virginal white sand beach. Vern and Mia shut the Heidelberg down, but this was one of those nights that wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't end. They racked up some miles on Vern Z28, cruising around the perimeter of Sonichiki, breathing the salt in the air, stealing glances at each other's moon-bathed hands and thighs and necks and hair. Their conversation flowed like the Gulf Stream. Vern, coasting on amatory clouds, regaled her with spontaneously conceived plans.
Let's just keep driving, like to the Grand Canyon or some shit.
Mia, floating on amorous jet streams, one-upped them.
Want to go skinny dipping? I double dog dare you.
Neither was quite bold enough to call the other's bluff, but she was dazzling, and he was dazzled, and he was dashing, and she was dashed.
Yeah.
The stars looked down and sighed. Then,
I want to tell you something, but I don't want you to get all weirded out.
Okay.
You know back at the castle when you were up there chicken dancing?
Yeah.
Vern took a deep breath. His vulnerability muscles ached from lack of exercise. He pressed through the resistance.
I had this feeling that that the world, that everything was just playing a private show for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like there was this voice in my head that was smarter than me, and it was telling me where to look, what to think.
Did you say a voice?
Mia looked at Vern with saucer eyes. His sphincter dilated.
You think I'm nuts? Shit, I should have opened my stupid mouth.
No,
I'm so
Vern,
sorry.
no. The whole smarter voice talking to you thing, I know all about this.
Vern had never felt such a sudden release of tension. Not on the toilet, not as his date manipulated his tux pants zipper in Tina's back seat after the homecoming dance sophomore year. Not ever.
You get it? You understand?
Maybe you have the same thing I have.
What's that?
A divergent personality.
What's that?
Mia explained urgently, putting into words for the very first time something she had held secret in her deepest emotional cellar.
Well, my parents last year, they found some dope in my purse and they made me go talk to this doctor who isn't actually a doctor. I don't think Dad understood the letters in her degree. I think that he and Mom thinks that she's a psychiatrist or a counselor, but she's more like my guru. And she told me that I have all kinds of wisdom, deep, deep down, that's buried underneath a lot of other stuff that only matters right now. And that the older I get, the easier it should be to get at the,
Vern nodded. His brain was baffled, but his heart and his guts like totally knew.
Anyway, for now, she said to keep this to myself, but like telling you feels so very, very completely right because my parents are super duper Catholic. But the guru doctor insists that we live our lives over and over again. And each time, each life, we learn a little bit more. And she said that I've been around a lot of times and learned a lot of stuff about the world and the universe, but that right now I'm so distracted by what's happening in this moment, right here, right now, that I'm shutting out my old voice.
Your smarter voice.
Exactly. I sort of stuffed the old voice and all the lessons I learned in a tunnel or something. And so there's always this argument happening between the here and now me and the old me. The old part of me knows exactly the right thing to do, but the other part of me can only think about what's happening right now. Like how a shark will eat your leg, even if it's not hungry, just because your leg is like right there in front of it, you know?
Whether by intention or instinct, Vern had, while listening, found the turnoff to his favorite little winding sandy road that dead-ended at a tiny piece of beach surrounded by mangroves. Tina snickered to a stop like a carriage horse. Vern turned in his seat, took all of Mia in. Mia suddenly realized where they were. Her mouth snapped shut and she turned toward Vern. They both held their breath, as you do before moments of import. Vern reached over and took her hand. Their fingers trembled as they intertwined.
What's your old voice saying right now?
Well, that's the problem. I haven't learned how to tell one voice from the other.
They could feel each other's hearts thudding through their palms.
So, Vern, my whole point is maybe you have that too.
Divergent personality.
Yeah. And maybe when I was dancing and everything seemed so clear to you, you were hearing your old voice. My doctor says very few people have them, and that most of us who do have them never hear them, much less listen to them.
Vern wet his lips and wound up for the pitch.
I don't know why this constant.
But Vern kissed her before she had a chance to verbalize what she didn't know. What she did not know didn't matter a whit, because all was now, and now was pixie dust. Now was the stars getting bigger and brighter. Now was the transcendent buzz of the universe fully audible, pounding, pulsating, FM signals coursing through their lips and tongues and teeth and saliva, through fingers fumbling and breaths halting and moans harmonizing and souls melding. Glowing bioluminescence transformed the Gulf of Mexico into a vast plain of ghosts. Elder ones bent time, and pain lords rent space. The cosmic timpani crescendoed. After their panting slowed, as they lay in a sweaty heap in the back seat, limbs blissfully akimbo, they listened to the sonnage night. Vern stirred. His fingers sizzled through some sweat on Mia's brow.
What's your old voice saying right now?
She snuggled in tighter against him.
Good boy, Vern. Good boy.
Cuter than pigs and shit.
You can wear that mark, right? A theatrical author reading.
Well,
Dee and Danae and Dee, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
On the schedule, I told Georgia and Brent we were going to be on. So yeah, so all 3 books are available right down there. I can see them stacked up right there. Everything in your swag will take you to the website, help you find access to more books and ways to get them as well. Please sign up for the email list. And just thank you all so much for being here. There's plenty of food and drink here too. We're just gonna hang out for a few more minutes if you want to talk to me or Mark, the actors, readers. But also, especially, I just want to say that there's so many of Sam's family are here and they entrusted me with something so precious. And I thank you so much for that. And just thank you all so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. And have some wine and have some fun. Thank you very much.